She walked into that airport like any other traveler but left with the whole world watching. How did a routine trip spark a moment that made even the police drop to their knees? Let us know in the comments section below. Delilah Huffman's heel struck the polished tile with calm certainty. She wasn't rushing, wasn't panicked, wasn't unsure. She moved like someone used to being listened to, even in silence. Her daughter Amara trailed just a few steps behind, earbuds in, hoodie up, rolling a bag that squeaked every fifth rotation. It was early afternoon at Monarch International Airport, one of those oddly timeless places where everything was brightly lit but somehow felt like a liminal void between the lives people left behind and the ones they were about to enter. They had just passed Gate 14 when Amara's voice broke the stretch of quiet. "Mom," she said, pulling out one earbud. "You sure you don't want to grab something before we board? I saw a Sheikh Haven back there." Delilah smiled, though her eyes never stopped scanning, not because she was paranoid, just because old habits die hard. "I'm fine. But you can go get something if you want. Just meet me at the gate in 20. You remember the number?" Amara nodded but still hesitated. "You good though?" Delilah turned to face her daughter squarely. "Baby, I'm always good." They split. Amara disappeared back toward the food court and Delilah kept walking toward the gate. She reached into her tote, felt around for the folder of briefing notes she'd stuffed in there at the last second, and pulled out her phone. Missed call from Elijah Monroe. 3 texts. Flight confirmed. White House is looping in. The security details adjusted for DC pickup. Everything was as expected. That's why the sudden voice behind her, too loud, too certain, made her spine tighten. "Ma'am, I need you to stop right there." It wasn't a request. Delilah paused mid-step, slowly turned, and came face to face with a stocky, red-faced airport police officer gripping his belt like it was the only thing keeping him in power. "I said stop walking. I need to ask you a few questions," he barked. Another officer approached from the right, younger, maybe mid-20s, clearly following the lead of the first. Delilah blinked, briefly taking stock of her surroundings. People were already slowing down, watching. Phone cameras weren't out yet, but they would be soon. "What seems to be the issue?" she asked, voice smooth as Riverstone. "You were acting suspicious near the security checkpoint," the older officer snapped. "You doubled back near the southwest gates. What's in the bag?" Delilah tilted her head slightly. "My laptop and some documents." "Going to need you to open it before I do," she said, eyes steady. "I'd like your name and badge number." That small request triggered something in him. "You don't ask me questions," he growled. "You're not in charge here." "Not yet," she murmured. The younger officer, Cruz, his name tag read, shifted uncomfortably. The senior officer, Sergeant Hensley, stepped closer. Too close. His breath smelled like stale coffee and the edge of a bad day. "I've got reason to believe you're a security threat. Are you refusing a lawful order?" Delilah gave him a long, unreadable look, then reached slowly into her tote bag. He flinched and unlatched the holster on his hip. She paused, eyebrows raised. "I'm reaching for my credentials," she said calmly. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "Sir," said Cruz, voice shaking. She said credentials. "Maybe she's—" "Shut it," Hensley snapped, never taking his eyes off Delilah. Delilah moved anyway. Slow. Measured. She pulled out a slim leather folder, opened it with a practiced flick of the thumb, and held it up. The gold badge glinted under the airport lights. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Director. Full credentials. The kind that didn't leave room for confusion. There it was. Silence fell. Cruz looked like he'd swallowed a brick. Hensley stared blankly for a second too long. Delilah tucked the folder back into her tote, voice sharp now. Let me be absolutely clear. You detained me in public without cause, in front of witnesses. You escalated. You ignored protocol. You placed your hand on your weapon. She took a step forward. He took one back. I am the director of the FBI. Your name will be on my desk before I land in D.C. Around them, the crowd began to murmur. Phones were out now. Amara reappeared at the edge of the circle, eyes wide with confusion, smoothie in hand. Mom? Delilah looked at her daughter, then back at the officers. Amara, wait over there. This won't take long. Hensley was still frozen. Then, as if waking from a trance, he straightened up. I didn't realize. I thought. Delilah didn't let him finish. She turned and walked toward her gate, heel striking tile again, this time louder. Behind her, she heard something she didn't expect, Cruz speaking quietly, then the sound of movement. She glanced back. Hensley had fallen to one knee. Whether out of shame, shock, or some twisted attempt to save face, she didn't know. Didn't care. Because the damage was already done. And this was only the beginning. The phone call started before Delilah even found a seat. She'd made it 20 foot down the concourse before her phone buzzed again. Not Elijah this time. Not the bureau. Unknown number. But she already knew exactly who it was. Delilah Huffman, she answered, pausing by a row of empty chairs near gate 17. Director Huffman, this is Chief Brenda Knowles, head of airport security here at Monarch. I just received an incident report about an interaction between you and two of our officers. There was urgency in the woman's voice, but no panic, professional, controlled. I see, Delilah said, glancing over her shoulder. Hensley was still rooted in place, now surrounded by several security staff and a couple onlookers whispering behind their phones. I imagine you want to talk to me before this hits every major news outlet. I'd appreciate that. I'm 5 minutes out. I'll meet you where you are. Good. I'm not going anywhere. She hung up. Delilah's body ached with that subtle, familiar tension, like the pressure right before a wire snaps. She'd learned long ago to live with that hum in her bones. But it still bothered her. The way something so familiar could still sting so much. The looks. The tone. The doubt. Her status didn't protect her from perception. It just delayed the moment when people had to reckon with it. Amara dropped into the chair beside her, sipping from her now half-melted smoothie. You good? Her daughter asked, voice low. Delilah gave her a quick glance. Yeah. I'm fine. You don't look fine. Delilah didn't answer. You want me to post it? Amara asked, holding up her phone. Delilah hesitated. Her daughter wasn't asking for attention. She wasn't chasing likes. She was angry. Protective. Hurt, the way only a child can be when they realize the world sees their mother as something less than what she is. No, Delilah said at last. Not yet. Chief Brenda Knowles appeared a moment later, moving briskly down the corridor, flanked by 2 internal affairs officers and a civilian in a suit who looked like he hadn't been in the terminal since it was built. Director Huffman, she said, extending her hand as soon as she arrived. I'm so sorry you've had to deal with this. Delilah stood and shook it. You have no idea how often I hear that. Chief Knowles sighed. I do. But I also intend to mean it. They spoke quietly, away from Amara, who remained in her seat but watched everything with laser focus. Brenda's demeanor wasn't just professional, it was precise. Every word measured. Every sentence aimed at accountability without tipping into defensiveness. We're already opening a review of Sergeant Hensley's actions, she said. His record has prior complaints. Nothing sustained, but enough to paint a picture. I'm familiar with the type, Delilah replied. It's always just below the surface. Until it's not. I don't want to insult your intelligence by asking if you'd like to press charges. Delilah raised a brow. Would it make a difference if I did? Chief Knowles hesitated, then answered honestly. It might. It also might not. But it would be public. And it would force hands that need to be forced. Delilah glanced back toward the terminal windows, where a toddler was licking the glass while their mother tried to yank them off it. I didn't come here to be the face of a scandal, she said. I came here to get on a plane. But now it was bigger than her. Now the moment had arrived. She didn't choose the spotlight, it had chosen her. Again. Brenda stepped closer, lowered her voice. If it means anything, I used to work the field. Baltimore. I was FBI too. Quit 10 years ago when my son was born. Got tired of the weight that never lifted. Delilah blinked. You worked with Harris? Briefly. We had very different opinions about how much fight was too much. Delilah gave a quiet smile. He still hasn't figured that out. Brenda exhaled, and for a moment they weren't two officials handling a crisis, just two black women who had made it through too many battles to count. Behind them, more phones buzzed. The story had hit Twitter. Someone had uploaded a blurry clip, just enough to catch Hensley's voice barking at Delilah, then her pulling out the badge, then the stunned pause that followed. Hashtags were already forming. Hashtag FBI while black. Hashtag director detained. Hashtag power in plain sight. Within 15 minutes, 2 national media outlets were at the gate requesting statements. Brenda handled them, shielded Delilah. But Delilah knew she couldn't avoid it for long. When she turned, Amara was holding out her phone again, this time not as a weapon, but as a bridge. I didn't post anything, Amara said. But they did. Everyone already knows. Delilah took the phone, watched the clip in silence, then handed it back. Let them talk, she said. We'll be louder. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Amara leaned her head on her mama's shoulder. Delilah kissed the top of her curls. The gate agent called pre-boarding. The flight was running late, of course. Everything was. As they stood to board, Elijah Monroe appeared at the terminal entrance, breathless in a trench coat and aviators like a government-issued guardian angel. Director, he said with a slight bow. Ma'am. Elijah, Delilah greeted. Or you're just fashionably scandalous. Both can be true. He nodded toward Amara. Your mom just made the entire bureau trend. I know, Amara said proudly. Elijah turned serious. They're ready for you in D.C. Press is already camped out at arrivals. We'll go straight to the black car. No stops. Delilah gave a curt nod. Then, as they handed over boarding passes and walked down the jet bridge, she whispered to Amara. Whatever happens next, we walk into it the same way we walk out of it. How's that? Together. Head high. And that's exactly what they did. Even as the plane taxied. Even as her inbox filled with demands and questions and declarations of support or outrage. Delilah Huffman leaned back in her seat, closed her eyes, and exhaled. She didn't know what the next 48 hours would look like. But she did know this. The mask had cracked. The badge had been seen. And the world had watched every second of it. The plane touched down at Reagan National with a shudder, wheels screaming against the tarmac as if the ground itself didn't know how to welcome what was coming. Delilah opened her eyes. No sleep. Not even rest. Her body had been still for 2 hours, but her mind had been sprinting. She'd spent the flight staring at the tray table like it might flip open into a better reality, one where the confrontation in the airport was a blip, not a bomb. One where the badge she carried actually shielded her from the same doubt she'd spent her entire life defying. It didn't. Elijah stood as soon as the seatbelt light went off, his expression unreadable behind mirrored lenses. But his voice was quiet when he leaned in. "They're out there. About a dozen. CNN. MSNBC. A local crew from WPGT. Secret Service is parked on the curb. We move fast and we don't speak." Delilah nodded. "And Dara?" "She exits first. Black Suburban. You'll meet her at the safe lot." Delilah turned to her daughter, who looked up with equal parts defiance and fear. "I can walk with you," Amara offered, her chin lifted. "No. This part's mine," Delilah said. "You just breathe, and remember who you are." As soon as they stepped onto the jet bridge, the sound started to filter in, voices rising, cameras clicking, reporters jostling for angles. Delilah didn't slow her pace. She walked like she had authority, because she did. Walked like she had nothing to explain, because she didn't. But she could still feel it, the heat of their gaze. Not just the press. The airport employees peeking from behind counters. The TSA agents watching from behind ropes. Even the other passengers, some pretending to scroll their phones but secretly recording. The clip had gone viral twice before they landed. Once because of who she was. Twice because of how calm she'd stayed. But none of the commentary changed the truth. A black woman in power had been treated like a suspect, until her title gave them a reason to stop. They moved through the airport in a tight triangle, Elijah in front, Delilah behind him, and a bureau escort covering the rear. The Secret Service agents at the exit gave stiff nods as they opened the door. Then the wall of microphones hit her like a gust of icy wind. "Director Huffman, did you file a complaint against the officers? Was this racially motivated? What message do you have for Black Americans who say this confirms their worst fears? Do you think this would have happened if you weren't wearing heels and a tote instead of a badge and a gun?" That one made her stop, just for a second. She didn't speak. Just turned slightly, meeting the reporter's gaze with a look that said more than words ever could. Then she got in the car. The door closed with a finality that felt like a slam, even though it wasn't. Inside, Elijah handed her a secure tablet. Briefing packet. Chief Knowles gave a full statement, and the department suspended Hensley pending review. Cruz is cooperating with internal investigators. Delilah scrolled through photos and headlines, each one more dramatic than the last. The tabloids were already embellishing, FBI director manhandled in shocking airport scandal. One site used the word assault, which wasn't accurate, but also wasn't as far off as it should have been. "What about DC Metro?" she asked. "They're silent. Watching. They won't speak until the DOJ does." "And the Attorney General?" Elijah didn't answer. That was an answer. Delilah sat back, running a hand over her face, her fingertips pressing into her temples like she could knead the pressure out from inside her skull. "This is going to eat up oxygen we don't have," she murmured. "Maybe," Elijah said. "Or maybe it's the fire we needed, to burn down the rot." The car pulled through a private gate, entering a secure parking garage beneath a federal annex building. They took a service elevator up to the 5th floor, where 2 more agents were already waiting, stone-faced, arms crossed. "Conference Room B," one said. "The director's office has been sealed for your discretion." Delilah turned to Elijah. "They think I can't sit in my own chair?" He didn't flinch. "They think you're radioactive. Then they better learn how to wear lead." She walked past both agents and pushed the door open herself. The conference room was sleek and cold, stainless steel chairs around a brushed aluminum table, with a single window overlooking a city skyline that looked entirely too peaceful for the war happening inside its walls. She sat at the head of the table. Within seconds, the room began to fill, deputy directors, legal counsel, public relations, chief advisors. None of them sat. They stood awkwardly, clutching tablets and phones, waiting for her to speak. She made them wait. Not out of spite, but to remind them, she didn't answer to chaos. Or to fear. Or to their discomfort. "I will say this once," she began, voice steady. "What happened yesterday was not an anomaly. It was a mirror, a moment that reflects a reality too many people still deny. I'm not angry because it happened to me. I'm furious because it happens every single day to people whose names don't trend." No one interrupted. Delilah continued. "We do not get to act like this is unfortunate but rare. We do not get to hide behind under review or standard procedure. We are the federal line between accountability and corruption, and I'll be damned if I let this office be anything less than righteous in the face of systemic rot." One of the PR officers shifted, unsure. "Ma'am," he said, with respect, "there's concern about optics, about appearing too political." Delilah leaned forward. "You mean appearing too black?" He blinked. "No, I mean. You mean that power makes people comfortable until it comes with a face they didn't expect. And now I'm here. And I won't shrink to make this room more comfortable." The room fell silent again. Elijah watched from the corner, saying nothing, but a flicker of pride played at the edge of his jaw. Delilah stood. "We're not releasing a hollow statement. We're not issuing a blanket apology or throwing anyone under the bus. We're doing something better. We're exposing the system from the inside, with teeth." And with that, she walked out. In the hallway, Amara stood waiting, leaning against the wall with a backpack slung over one shoulder. "You weren't supposed to be here," Delilah said. "I followed the Suburban. I raised you too well." "Yeah. You did." Delilah paused, then reached out and gently brushed Amara's hair behind her ear. "You okay?" she asked. "Not really," Amara replied. "But I'm proud." Delilah felt her throat tighten. "Then that's enough. For now." Together, they walked to the elevator. The world outside didn't know it yet, but the storm hadn't even started. It started with one video. Not the one from the airport, that one had already done its damage and sparked its fury. No, this one was different. A still frame of Delilah Huffman walking through Gate 14, head high, flanked by two white officers. Behind her, Officer Hensley could be seen crouched slightly, one knee down, eyes cast to the floor. The frame froze at the perfect second. It didn't need a caption. It didn't even need context. It had weight all on its own. A local journalist named Clara Vance had posted it. No commentary. Just one sentence: "Power looks like this." Within an hour, it had been retweeted by senators, athletes, and celebrities. Within 2, it had gone global. Delilah didn't ask for any of it. She never wanted to be a symbol. She wanted to lead the bureau with integrity. Fix what she could from the inside. Retire quietly. And maybe write a book nobody would read. But life, especially for people like her, had a way of being rewritten by moments she didn't choose. By midday, her inbox had tripled. Hundreds of emails, some supportive, some venomous. It didn't matter. She was no stranger to being seen through the wrong lens. But one email stood out. It was from a name she hadn't seen in years, Judge Penelope Grant. Just a short message. "The Senate Oversight Committee is watching. They're impressed. Keep the heat on. Let me know if you want a seat at the next hearing." Delilah read it twice. She picked up her desk phone and dialed. "Elijah, set up a meeting with Penelope," she said. "And call the press office. I'm ready to speak." By the time evening rolled around, the sun had dipped low over the Capitol dome, casting gold over the pavement and making even the iron fences look less like barriers and more like stage curtains. Delilah stood at the podium in a navy blue blazer, a white blouse beneath it, simple, powerful, clean. The seal of the bureau gleamed behind her. Rows of cameras faced her. Microphones clustered at the stand like a bouquet of anticipation. She looked out over the sea of faces and began. Yesterday, I was mistaken for someone who didn't belong. That assumption was made based on the color of my skin, the pace of my walk, and the fact that I didn't flinch when power confronted me. Her voice was clear, measured, not angry, but firm. It wasn't the first time. And for millions of Americans, it won't be the last. But what made this moment different is that the badge in my bag outweighed the bias in their eyes. For most people, that's not an option. And that's the problem. Cameras clicked like applause. I didn't come here to vilify officers. I came here to clarify the truth. This is not about one bad interaction. It's about a system that allows those interactions to repeat, unchallenged, every day. My job, our job, is to be the firewall between authority and abuse. To call it out when we see it. To fix it when we can. And to admit, finally, that silence is not neutrality, it's compliance. She paused, letting the words settle. In my role as FBI director, I have authorized a full review of federal airport police training protocols nationwide. We will partner with civil rights organizations, airport boards, and behavioral experts to reshape the way officers assess threat versus presence. We will prioritize emotional intelligence over intimidation. And we will create clear channels for accountability when power is misused. There was a murmur in the crowd, some skeptical, some stunned, some hopeful. Delilah took a breath and looked straight into the cameras. To every child watching this, especially the ones who look like me, I want you to know this. You do belong. Even when the world tells you otherwise. Even when it doubts your worth. Your power isn't given, it's lived. With that, she stepped away from the podium. The next day, something even stranger happened. The Fraternal Order of Police issued a joint statement of support. Not a full endorsement. Not an apology. But something close. A call to reassess procedures and improve racial sensitivity training across high-traffic zones like airports and transit hubs. A whisper of change from an institution that usually moved like granite. Then came the flood. Airports from Chicago to Seattle reached out, asking for guidance. Civil rights attorneys volunteered time for policy reviews. Former officers who had left the force due to racism shared stories that echoed hers. The dominoes had started to fall. Meanwhile, Officer Cruz resigned, but not in disgrace. He requested to meet with Delilah. They sat across from each other in a quiet corner of a federal coffee lounge. 2 paper cups between them, silence stretching. I was scared, he admitted. Not of you. Of him, Hensley. Of becoming him. Delilah said nothing. I joined to protect people, not to profile them. But I didn't speak up. And now? She shook her head. You're speaking now. That's what matters. He looked up, tears just beginning to brim. I want to do better. For real. Then start by training others not to make the same mistake, Cruz. He blinked. She smiled. We're launching an internal program for field empathy training. We need people who've seen it from both sides. You interested? He nodded, slowly, then faster. Across the city, Amara sat at the kitchen table of their home, flipping through a school assignment. Her essay, titled What My Mom Did at the Airport, had been bumped from the student blog to the regional newsletter. Her teacher said she should send it to the Washington Post. She didn't really care about all that. She just wanted people to know. Know who her mom was. Stood for. That night, Delilah came home later than usual. The house was quiet. Dinner in the fridge. Amara asleep, with one arm over a civics book. Delilah walked into her room and kissed her forehead. The girl stirred. "You changed the world yet?" she whispered. Delilah sat beside her. "Not yet. But I shook it." Amara smiled sleepily. Same thing. Outside, the headlines would keep spinning. The news cycle would shift. Another story would take the lead. But the ripples would remain. Because for once, justice didn't knock. She walked in. And this time, she looked like Delilah Huffman. The woman who made the world stop and forced it to see. The woman who walked into an airport as a stranger, and walked out a symbol. The woman who made them kneel. Not out of power, but out of truth. And then, the woman who never once, not once, lowered her